Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. Thank you everybody that submitted questions on my Game of Thrones video this week. Lots of questions about the Direwolves and like a couple curious warging questions about warging into White Walkers and dragons and stuff, so I tried to add that to the list. I did see a little confusion about when I said George R. Martin confirmed that Benjen is not Cold Hands. So if you didn't see this in my last video, like it was shown really quickly, but it's a manuscript from his editor asking if Benjen is Cold Hands, and this no is what Martin wrote in response. So negatory on Benjen Cold Hands. But careful for spoilers from the show as we get into questions, so here we go. First question, Danny asks, Sir Pounce will join Nymeria's wolf pack and help lead with her. So you're very clearly joking about Sir Pounce, but I wanted to use your question to talk about the Superpack. So just doing a head count of the Direwolves right now, the only ones that are dead are Grey Wind, that's Rob's direwolf, and Lady, Sansa's direwolf. Although Sophie Turner in real life adopted the dog that they used for that. So she actually owns Lady from the show now in real life. But Nymeria specifically, lots of people asking about her. She's still totally alive, but remember during season 1 when Arya told her to run away after she bit Joffrey? They were on their way to King's Landing, so they were down closer to the Riverlands. So as of right now, in the books and on the show, Nymeria has just been running around collecting wolves, regular wolves. She's kind of like a super alpha, so instead of a normal wolf pack, she has what George R. Martin has called a super pack, meaning that there are many, many wolves that are following her around. They're running around hunting. I did a video on this last year, so I'll put a link in the description, but basically, Martin has said that he wouldn't create a super pack if it wasn't going to play in later in the story. So the super pack sounds like it's going to be something of a nuclear weapon in the War for the Dawn. Or they could just be hunting down Juicy Freys and Juicy Boltons, who knows. But they will be back. Next question, Dr. Pug asks, what do you think about Hallan Reed in the show? Which storyline would he get caught up in? I would think the North Remembers storyline. We haven't seen him on the show yet, like he hasn't appeared, so we have no idea who's going to be playing him, but I do think that he'll be on the show soon. They are casting Northern Lords for season 6. I don't know if we'll see him in season 6, we might see him in season 7 or 8, but he is way too big of a character in the history of A Song of Ice and Fire to not appear in the show in some way. Just as a tangent though, wouldn't it be totally weird if they did him in a flashback, but not in present day? Because he's not dead, like he's still alive in present day. And no, I do not think that he is the High Sparrow. Next question, Onsat asks, what about Loras and Marjorie? Are they totally screwed with the High Sparrow thing? No, remember when the High Sparrow was trying to get Cersei to confess, he said that Marjorie and Loras did, and because of that, they'd probably be looked upon favorably at the trial. They're not totally off the hook or anything, they still have to go to the trial too, but he made it sound like he didn't really care about what they'd done. They'd confess, they'd serve some small penance, and they'd probably be fine. Next question, Galaxy asks, what about Arya's dancing master? So you're talking about Syrio Forel. So it hasn't been confirmed that he died, although they wanted you to think that at the end of season 5. They showed him in the previously on for the finale episode, so it made it seem like Arya was getting revenge for his killing. And even if they were vague about it, the actors that play Meryn Trant and Syrio Forel were kind of making fun of each other on Twitter just a little bit, just having a little bit of fun, like, thanks for the memories, thanks for killing me, ha ha ha. Maisie Williams even chimed in and was like, ladies, please, calm down, ladies. So if the actor that plays Syrio Forel thinks that he is dead, then he is probably dead. But if you want to be a conspiracy nut, you could totally believe it. But no, I don't think that Jack and Hagar is Syrio Forel. Like, I don't think that someone else was secretly Syrio Forel. Next question, Zumzum asks, do you think that Bran will be able to control a dragon with his warg abilities? George R. Martin actually gets asked this all the time, and all he says is there's no precedent for it, like he just doesn't want to spoil it, I'm assuming. But if you look at it this way, the dragons are animals. They're closer to being lizards than they are to being birds, but they're still animals, so Bran should be able to warg into them. But I think a lot of it has to do with how powerful the mind is of the thing that he's warging into. Martin hasn't really explained it that well in the books. I think he's just saving a lot of things for later. But a lot of you asked if he'd be able to warg into a White Walker or something like that, and all I can say to that is probably not, just because they have such powerful magic too. Like, it would probably be harder for Bran to warg into Melisandre than it would be for Hodor, someone with a very simple mind. So if his skill level gets a lot better, and there's a dragon in proximity to him, like line of sight, I think he has to be line of sight, then he could probably warg into one. Next question, Brady asks, do you think that Brienne will catch the Lady Stoneheart storyline? I would say if they decide to include those elements in the story, yeah, definitely. But I think it'll be a different character. It won't be the Lady Stoneheart from the books. Thematically, it just works really well with the idea of the North Remembers and that storyline that we know that they're doing in season 6. But one of the problems with what happens with Brienne in the books is that she's kind of left on a cliffhanger. Like, we don't know what happens to her. So the show is probably going to take a few liberties and continue with that storyline. Just in my own opinion, in the books, I think that she's fine. I think that she saved herself at the last minute. So I think that something similar will happen on this show. Just Brienne of Tarth, Gwendolyn Christie, such amazing characters with an amazing actor that I think it would be a huge mistake of the show to get rid of her. Next question, MickCO917 asks, do you think that we'll get to see any new Valyrian steel forged now that we have dragons out and about? I'm hoping that Sam will get his hands on some secrets at the Citadel. Well, he would definitely be one of the characters to figure out how to forge Valyrian steel, but we don't know if they actually have those in the Citadel. There are really two places in the world that have amazing libraries. One is the Citadel, and the other is in Asshai, where Melisandre comes from. It's way, way over here in the east, the far east. That's actually where Daenerys' dragon eggs were purchased, if you wonder where they came from. The coast over there is pockmarked with caves, so a lot of people think that there are clutches of dragon eggs. I think I actually did a video about that too, so I'll put another link in the description. But it just implied that part of the secret sauce of making Valyrian steel is dragon fire. If they're going to be fighting a war for the Dawn though, they're going to need an army with tools that can defeat White Walkers. And Valyrian steel along with obsidian are the only two things that we know about that can do that. There's also a theory that obsidian could be involved in the creation of Valyrian steel too. And Dragonstone is like an obsidian factory because dragons live there for so long. They call it dragon glass for a reason. So I'd really like to see Daenerys turn Dragonstone into a Valyrian steel factory. That would be amazing. Next question, Rondons asks, could we talk about how Tyrion and Varys' goals will play out in Game of Thrones? I believe they both have the best of intentions, but sometimes Varys makes me wonder. Well, if you remember, when Varys was trying to convince Tyrion to help him, he was talking about a higher purpose. Like, we need to put someone on the throne that will help us survive what is coming. He hasn't talked a whole lot about White Walkers or the War for the Dawn, so he may or may not have an idea of what's going on with that. We only know that he just wants what he thinks is best for Westeros. And he thinks that Daenerys is the right person for the job. So he and Tyrion will just do whatever it takes to put Daenerys on the Iron Throne. That's their ultimate goal right now. Obviously, their short-term goal, though, is taking care of Meereen while Daenerys is away. So I think most of their time in Season 6 is going to be spent fighting off the rest of Slaver's Bay that are probably going to try and move in now that Daenerys is away. If you guys have read the sample chapters from Winds of Winter, just please use spoiler tags because there is some talk of what's going on with Tyrion and Meereen. Next question, Nicola asks, hey Charlie, which family in Game of Thrones is the most interesting in the books and the TV show? Well, I mean, off the top of my head, I would say House Targaryen, just because they go so far back. There's so much history there. George R. R. Martin has said that like one of his next projects after he's done with The Song of Ice and Fire is to do a complete history of the Targaryen family, like a story told from their perspective. It's supposedly going to be called Fire and Blood. The Starks are really interesting too. I mean, I'd really like to learn more about the Kings of Winter. Those were all the Stark kings from the time of the First Men to the time of Aegon's conquest. But definitely Targaryens first, because I really want to see ancient Valyria. Next question, Meshgate asks, do you think that Reek and Sansa will go to the Iron Islands and that's how we'll catch up to the Greyjoys, or there'll be an entirely different story? So I assume you're asking mostly about the Iron Islands. I think that they'll be a completely separate story. Kingsmoot, things that happen in the books that they've just skipped so far. There's actually been some reports today that say that they've cast their Euron Greyjoy and they've filmed some scenes that will lead up to the Kingsmoot. Now, if you've read the books and you know what happens to lead to the Kingsmoot, please just use spoiler tags if you're going to talk about it, because it seems like that part of the Ironborn storyline is just going to be straight out of the books. But I'm not expecting Reek and Sansa to cross over with the Ironborn storyline in a major way. I'm expecting their storyline to revolve mostly around the North Remembers and the other Northern Lords. But thank you so much for submitting questions, everyone. These are always a ton of fun to do. Congratulations to this week's giveaway winner, too. Let's see, Donna K. You win a $20 Amazon gift card. Just be sure to message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact info. Let me know what you guys want me to do for my next Game of Thrones bonus video. But there's actually a bunch of huge stuff happening in the next couple days. There's Star Wars Force Friday, which I'm thinking of as like Disney's Kickstarter for their Star Wars Expanded Universe. Like, they're raising money by selling toys and doing unboxing online. Look at how poor we are. We won't be able to make 10 more Star Wars films unless you buy billions of dollars worth of toys. There's a bunch of Flash news, there's some Green Lantern Arrow news, so I'll be doing those videos next, and there should be a couple trailers for that stuff coming soon too. But while you guys wait for